very happy to have Sheriff Neil Elks here this morning. Also to my left, we have District 1 Greenville City Council person Candy Smith. We also have Sergeant Joe Friday of Greenville Police Department. I would say that Chief Aiden was also hoping to be here this morning, but we picked a day he was on vacation. And also our district attorney here in Pitt County, Kimberly Robb, is here. And so, again, we're going to open with comments, and what we'd like to have all four of you do is just give your feelings about where we are in Greenville now in terms of fighting crime, what the big issues are, and what we're doing to solve them. And Joe, I'm going to start with you, because there is a new program that Chief Aiden has been talking about called Focused Deterrence. It's something that I know you're working on. You've kind of been put in charge of that.
Yes.
It's something that's happening in other areas, and people are having good results with this. Tell us about that and what's going on right now with the police department and fighting crime.
Okay, thank you, Henry. Focused Deterrence is a strategy. It's not a program or a grant. It's a strategy of attacking crime. It's first of all data driven, so it's not an intuitive thing. It's driven by the data that we collect. We're working with the University of North Carolina at Greensboro, some researchers there who have worked with people from John Jay College and George Mason University, people who are familiar with Chief Aiden. It's a strategy that identifies through the data repeat offenders that have been a thorn in our side or a thorn in the community side over a long period of time. And you sort of have a feeling that you know who these people are, but when you get this data, basically it's from a survey of the past 30 and 40 case reports over a series of years. You come back and they put these numbers down, and pretty much the numbers back up what you've already sort of intuitively know about these people. So you've got the data. We go back and we identify these people. We point a finger at them and say, hey, you're not going to offend anymore in this community, and we can't arrest everybody, but we're going to arrest you, and we're going to bring to bear all the resources we can muster to shut you down. And that's it in a very short nutshell. But at the same time that you're doing this, we also offer them valid resources. Say, look, if you need help with housing, you need job training, you need education. On one hand, we're offering these things to you, but on the other hand, we're saying to you, if you don't accept these things, if you continue to offend, we're going to come after you, and we can't arrest everybody in the world, but we're going to arrest you, and we're going to send you away for a long time. And we've done this in a sense with some demonstrations. You've seen a certain number of people who in the news recently who have had sentences for 30 years for armed robbery, 45 years for armed robbery. Those people go away and don't come back. So that's the kind of effort, enforcement effort we're going to bring on these people. It works. It's a proven strategy. It started out in High Point, North Carolina. It's often called the High Point model. It works in Boston. They had an operation called Ceasefire. They named it Ceasefire up there. Seattle, Indianapolis. Right now it's in Rockingham County, North Carolina. Is very big, very successful. And up in right now they're working on it in Baltimore, Maryland, to try to knock the violent crime down there. You can't attack everything all across the board, so it's called focus for a reason. You focus in on certain types of offenses, certain offenders, and that small percentage of people are the ones who are causing a great deal of the heartache and disruption in our communities. It's like a laser. You put a laser on those people, you burn them out, you get them out of here.
All right, very good. Let's let Kimberly Robb follow up with that. I know you and Kimberly have worked together on some of this, and Kimberly, I guess focused deterrence won't work unless you're involved as the district attorney here in Pitt County. Give us your opening comments.
Well, I think the important thing about what Joe said, and I do want to follow up with that, is that before you can attack a problem, you must identify it. And that's what we've done in our meeting with the police department and the sheriff's department. Through our research and group meetings, we've recognized that a small percentage of people are committing the vast majority of the violent crimes here in Pitt County. It is cost effective to focus on these people. Heidi said, to try to stop the behavior. But if it continues, once these people are identified and targeted, we will utilize all resources to bring them in and prosecute them to the fullest. We're also cooperating with the federal prosecutors. I want to take this opportunity to thank the Governor's Crime Commission. We were one of only 9 communities to receive a renewal of the SASA funding, which gives us a federal prosecutor. We house one of our ADAs in the U.S. Attorney's Office to prosecute as a special assistant U.S. attorney. And that gives us an end to the federal prosecution where certain perpetrators can get much more time in the federal system, and it's just another way we can utilize resources that we have.
Okay, those are your comments, Kimberly, Rob. We appreciate that. Now let's go to Sheriff Neil Elks and get the perspective from the county. Sheriff, if you would pull that microphone up, yeah. And Sheriff Neil Elks, of course, is just in the last year of his first term, I think, up for re-election this year, and as of this week, I think unopposed. So,
well, not officially, but we're close to that.
So let's hear what you have to say, Sheriff Neil Elks.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you for the opportunity to be here. As we've already heard from the other 2 spokespersons, that we greatly see the need and the necessary to partnership with other agencies. What we have done is also work with the DA and the police department, we work with ATF, the U.S. Marshal Services, and we try to identify who the violent offenders are. We do realize that a few people are the main ones that are committing a lot of crimes. And over the years, it's always been my experience that when we arrest people, we usually can tie them into 15, 20, 30 crimes at a time. So our goal has been is when we start to immediately develop see a pattern, say for instance in a rural area we notice a couple break-ins come in that area, we immediately deploy our resources in those areas to include the ID officers, detectives, patrols. And we try to start canvassing, we try to identify who our suspects are, and we try to get these suspects before they commit 5 or 6, 7, 8 crimes. That's our way of trying to identify patterns and being on top of the crime on a daily basis. We don't wait till we all of a sudden get a community crying out saying that we've had 30 break-ins in our area. What are you doing? Well, we want to know about it before they know about it. And we do realize the importance of going after the big players, so to speak, whether it be the drug dealers or the gangs that are committing armed robberies or the group of people that are committing armed robberies. And we try to identify those quickly and bring them in.
All right, very good. Let's let Candy Smith weigh in here. Candy, of course, is on the Greenville City Council. Did I get your district right, District 1?
You did. Thank you.
Sometimes I get that wrong, but I think I
You
got it. Candy is on the Greenville City Council, and I know there's been a lot of concern and a lot of effort put into this, what's going on in our community. Candy, from the City Council's perspective, so give us your thoughts this morning.
Well, thank you so much for having me and for having this panel. When I look at crime, I guess I have to come from a different perspective because we know with law enforcement and the DA, we do need them to work hand in hand. But as the City Council, we have to make sure we support what's happening, especially with our Greenville Police Department. And we are trying to make sure that we provide any funds necessary for our chief in order to get the job done. But I also look at it from a different perspective. For me, I look at all of the youth that's involved in our community. It starts at home. This is not something where it's just like random acts. These things, they start early, because if we're looking at people who are having situations to occur 5, 6, 7, 10, 20 times, and once you finally pull them, they've been all over the city and creating these crimes. Well, my question is, what's happening at the beginning? What's happening at home? When I look at the Daily Reflector, I see from 17 to 24, I see those same youth in the paper almost every time repeating those same offenses. So one of the things I look at is what can we do as a city to provide programs that might capture their attention so that they can have something different. Because if you only are offered games, then it's going to increase the crime that you might try it. But if you have other options, maybe something with sports, maybe something with science. I know we're getting a science center. Maybe something in school, extracurricular activities, things that we can really support our youth in. Then we can try to do what we can on the front end to deter a lot of these things from happening. But when we have those individuals to come back into community, if we don't have different activities or rehab or things that we can work with them on, then they go back to the same thing of repeating those offenses. So I'm very concerned to find out what we can do as a community to stop it on the front end, to be proactive instead of having to be reactive, because it takes many, many more resources to be reactive than it does to be proactive. And for those who are coming back, if they're still fairly young, what can we do to rehabilitate them, to get them on the right path? What type of job training? What can we do to assist them to change their direction?
All right, thank you, Candy, and thanks to all of our panelists for the open questions. Now I want to open it up and just have a discussion about this, and I'll ask a few questions to get it going, but please, any of the panelists that want to weigh in on any of this, please do. Let me go back to you, Joe, and again, Sergeant Joe Friday is leading the focused deterrence efforts for the Greenville Police Department. I guess the one question that keeps coming up about focused deterrence is you mentioned it. It's a narrowly focused effort on specific criminals, and I think people would say if there is a criminal out there that police have identified that is creating all the problems, I guess some people might be shocked to find out that we're not already kind of bringing them in and sitting them down and saying, we're targeting you. If you don't stop it, you're going to spend the rest of your life in prison, that kind of thing. How is this different than what's been going on has there been some reason why these kind of things haven't been done in the past already?
No, that's actually been done in the past, but I think the difference here is that I can't make them stop offending all across the board, but what we're focusing on is violent crime, and I'm telling a specific offender, if you do violent crime, if you do armed robberies, if any of your group, it's not just, and I probably didn't do a great job explaining it, but it's not just that one person, it's the person that's within his circle of friends that they hang with. It's a group focus as well. If any of people in your group do these things, we're coming after all of you with everything we have, and at the same time we've done stuff like that in the past, but we haven't been able to offer the resources on the other hand. So it's a carrot and stick approach. Giving them the resources to the opportunity to change is a key part of focused deterrence. Also involving the community. We've got to have a community partnership with this. When we bring these people in, it's going to be an in-your-face meeting with community people, a moral voice, so to speak. And it's not going to be people just pointing a finger at them and talking to them. It's got to be people that they recognize and respect as well, so that they get the message. Their moms, their grandmothers are going to be there, their fathers, the pastor of their church, somebody that they've respected in the past that we know will get through to them. I could stand up and point a finger at some offender all day long and yell at him or talk with him and say, you're going to go to jail, and it's going in one ear and out the other because he doesn't respect me or doesn't respect my position. He just, it's another police officer talking to me, I don't need to listen to that.
Mm-hmm.
If you get that person's mother in there talking with them, you might have an opportunity to change.
Candy makes a good point. She talks about the same people she sees in the newspaper, 17 years old and 24 years old. But we even see kids younger than that. Let me ask Kimberly Robb, the district attorney, this question. Kimberly, is the legal system hindered somewhat, particularly with young offenders? Do you, we see the crime going further down and further down in terms of age. Is that a problem? Are your hands tied in some ways because of these kids' ages in some cases?
Once they reach 16, they're not, because from 16 on, they're treated as adults as far as the criminal system's concerned. What does hinder us is structured sentencing, and I know the legislature had a great idea when they put it in place, but it's very hard for first offenders, second offenders, third offenders, even fourth offenders to get any meaningful sentence within the structured sentencing guidelines that we're bound by.
And it's interesting. We got some judges in the audience. They might want to comment on this. We'll open up to the judges in a minute. But it's become a little bit in vogue to say the problem is the judicial system. The judges don't give them the sentences that they should get, and so they're right back out there. And then Joe's having to deal with them again from the police department angle. Is that fair or an unfair assessment?
That's a fair assessment, and really the people who have have it the worst are the probation officers, because we're forced to put these kids who are repeat offenders back on probation. So the probation officers have to watch them, monitor them, and now they've made it so that we can't even violate probationers except under two very specific circumstances.
Sheriff, as an officer of the law and the top-ranking officer of the law in Pitt County, what's your assessment of that? Does the judicial system need to be tougher?
Well, I think when we put structured sentencing in place, I think it needs to be gone back and looked at. Is it working? Or have we created more work on the probationary officers? Are we really turning these people around by giving them 1, 2, 3, and 4 chances before we give them any substantial amount of time? Maybe we need to look at the opposite. Maybe the first offense should be a stiff penalty enough that they don't think about doing it the second time. I would challenge our legislators to look at that. Or is that really working? I don't know the answer. I'm just saying that we need to look at the program we got. I don't think we can go another 20 years the way we're doing now. I think we need to look at what we've got in place. It's very discouraging to us, and it always is blamed back on the court system, but their hands are tied under this structured sentencing. You know, you can take a man who comes in, commits a breaking and entering, used to, he got a substantial amount of time. I'm dealing with him again 6 months again later, and he's back out on the street. That's what caused our crime to go up. And I look at it as the keeper of the jail. You know, he goes to prison, he's out 3 months, he's back in my jail, he's waiting for sentencing, it's costing the taxpayers on the local level. I'm having to house him rather than the state having to house him. I think we've got a lot of things we need to look at. I would like for our legislators to hear from us as sheriffs across the state and prosecutors what our concerns are and what we see and what we see the problem is. It's easy to sit up there sometime and say, well, let's just do this, let's bargain this, let's give more time for violent offenders. But to me, a person who breaks in your home is just as much of a violent offender as a rapist. And when I say that, I've seen people's lives change. I've seen children start going back wetting the bed because they think some boogeyman's going to come in and get them. I've seen elderly people that have lived there for 80 years no longer want to live in their home anymore because their house has been. That's a great violation. When you come in and your wife's underwear is laying in the middle of the floor, we need to take these offenses seriously. And to me, that's the passion of mine, is we need to help these people feel safe in their community again.
Candy, Councilwoman Smith, you brought up an interesting point. You talked about the family, and you know, it just seems like this is a universal problem in the entire country, but we're certainly seeing it here as well. I mean, there are a lot of these kids that have one parent, in some cases, one parent that's not really engaged. And what's the answer to that? You talked about getting them involved in sports. We got a great Boys and Girls Club here in the community. You have other programs that are trying. We got the Boy Scouts. I saw Ray Frank was here earlier this morning. Ray's still here. They've got a program now where they're going into some of the poor neighborhoods and trying to recruit the kids into the Boy Scouts. I know there's been some things underway that you've been heavily involved in, like the Dream Park in the West Greenville area. What's the history on those things? Do they work?
In my opinion, if you're engaged, I've heard people say things like an idle mind is a devil's workshop. Well, when you have a child, they have nothing to do. They're molded one way or another. If you don't have the parent involvement, because it starts at home, and let's say this parent is working all the time and their kid is home by themselves, but their influences are other kids in the streets and no telling what they're doing. So they begin to pick up on those behaviors, and it's unfortunate, but it's negative. A lot of times now I do some subbing in some of the schools, and I talk to some of the kids from 1st, 2nd grade, and some of the things that they've been exposed to, I was not exposed to until I was like 6th or 7th grade. So it's amazing to me what they have to deal with in life that I didn't have to deal with until a lot later. So I think something happened where the police had to come in and they went into some of the convenience stores that were doing some things illegal. Well, when that happened, I got more information from those young 3rd graders at school than I did from some of the police, because they were like, yeah, what they do is hide drugs here. And then I go into the store and I'm like, what do you know about that? What are you doing by yourself at the store? What type of activities are going on? So if we had more of our kids involved in Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, if we had more of our kids in after-school programs, making sure they have people tutor them to get their education, if we had more of our kids in sports. And when I think about sports, it's not just so I can become a great player, but what you're doing is you have a coach in that person's life. And I've been a coach for many years. And what I found is those kids would come to me where they wouldn't go to their parents, and we would have conversations about things they wouldn't ask their parents, and I had a chance to shape and help mold their life. So if they're on these sports teams, they have another avenue of someone to speak with. If they're involved in their church, with their youth departments, they can talk to their youth director, they can talk to their pastors, they can talk to other people who might have some of the same issues or challenges that they have. So we have to start on that front end, but a lot of it is when you look at first, second, third graders, kindergartners, it's hard to look at the kids and say they're bad kids, because they're not bad kids. It starts at home. So what are the parents doing? We have to find something to look at working with these parents, because you have the parents are kids, they're teens, so they're trying to raise kids. So what type of education are you really giving them when you don't know what to do and you're just going fly by night? So there's different programs out there, and I've been talking with some of the school principals, like how can we connect you with some of these programs that could help your parents? Because I've called parents and they said, you know what, I don't know what to do. And that's sad, because if you say that in front of your child, then your child thinks, I have free reign, because they don't know what to do. And you have someone else always out trying to put that bug in their ear and being an influence. And that's not always a positive influence. So we as a community have to make sure we're supporting any kind of program like that. But it's hard to do it when you don't have the people participating. So I will go and knock on doors and ask parents, what can you do? And we get you involved.
But now what we're going to do is open this up to the audience for community discussion. And if you have a question, just come up to the mic and state your name and your comments. And we have somebody here now, sir. Thank you for your participation this morning. Give us your name and your comments.
I didn't plan to be the first one, by the way. My name is Willie Wilson, and my question is probably two-pronged. One of them has to do with the comments from Ms. Smith, and the second has to do with the comments from Sergeant Friday. Now, she talked about the community, the family, and what's being done there, and mentioned, I think, some resources regarding the Boys and Girls Club and the Boy Scouts. The members of the families, I think the parents, are also going to be resource limited in terms of being able to get their kids to these venues that these services are provided for. So what's going to be done, what needs to be done, and can be done to assist them. And on the other end of it, which is where they ended up if you don't do something, is Sergeant Friday. You mentioned resources that is available. Now, I have members of my family that has gotten involved with law enforcement, and I tried to find some resources that would assist them when I thought that they were amenable to a redirecting in their lives. And I couldn't find anything. Saying, can you address more about what's there beyond just the counseling? You know, because you can talk to me all day, but if the community, the business owners aren't willing to hire me, what am I going to do? My only choice is almost to go back to crime again.
Let's start with your first question for Councilwoman Smith with regard to the resources in the community and getting kids there. And I believe, Candy, that most of these operations, like I know the Boys and Girls Club, provide transportation from schools and things like that.
Most of the programs do. There's a 21st Century program at the Intergenerational Center, and they were asking me to make sure we get kids so they can come in 3rd through the 5th grade and have tutors and do their education. They said, guess what? We provide transportation. They don't have to worry about that. So we will pick them up from the schools, and then we will bring them to the program. We will work with them, and we will feed them. And what the parents would have to do is pick them up from the program at 6:30. And we do have public transportation, and it still runs at that time. So if we need to, the parents need to come at 6 to get the kids on the buses and then bring them home, then they can do that. But I look at what are the other options. Bring them home, me not be there, then they're in the streets. So there are a lot of resources out where people are providing transportation. The thing is, you have to get the word out, but they have to get the parents involved and serious about getting their kids in these programs.
All right, and Sergeant Friday, the rest of the question about
training and resources. Our department partners with a group called Strive, and that's a reentry organization that trains people coming out of prison or out of jail, gives them job training, and that has been a very, very successful program that organization that we participated in. Also, in the school systems, we work with the school systems to limit out-of-school suspension to in-school suspension, and that's been very successful. I believe we've reduced out-of-school suspension significantly. I don't recall the name of that that operation, but I think it's Project Equal or Project Success, a couple of different things that we've worked with. Counseling and other things, I'm not familiar with all of those programs, but those are two programs I know have been successful.
Again, if you have a question, don't be shy. Come right up to the microphone. This is about community discussion. I've got something while we've got our next person coming up. Sheriff Elks, we talked about the problem with parents. You actually arrested a parent not long ago in the Farmville murders, the Farmville convenience store murders. You actually arrested a parent for not knowing where her child was, a 14-year-old boy who was out that was part of that. I want to ask you and also the district attorney, is that kind of strategy where we need to go at this point? And then I want to ask the district attorney, is there any way to make that kind of thing hold up in court?
Absolutely. That, to me, we all know and are reminded of how bad that homicide was. But when I go knock on a door and talk to a parent and say, where's your child at? And they tell me they haven't seen their child in 2 weeks, and he's 14 and a half, 15 years old, I have a serious problem with that. That's accountability we're talking about, that our parents need to know where our children are. To me, I think that was a very strong message that we need to send to her, not only her, but to the community, that you are a parent. You are responsible for that child until he's of age. And you're allowing your child to fester, if you will, in the criminal element in our community, and he's got a gun in his hand, committing an armed robbery where 3 lives were taken. To me, that was very serious. But the only charge I could actually charge that person with was contributing to the delinquency of a minor. I mean, to me, it should be a whole lot for charge there was, but that was always available. So that's things, and when we're making laws and considerations in the future, we need to look at how we hold how parents are held accountable for their children's actions. So many times, parents are, rely on everybody else. It's all about responsibility. This problem we have with children and crime and stuff, we've got to have the help from the parents in the home. Law enforcement, school system, judicial system can't fix it all. People have got to be responsible in that. I believe that. Let
me go to the district attorney, Kimberly Robb. Kimberly, if Sergeant Friday in the Greenville Police Department and Sheriff Elks and his folks in the Sheriff's Department start arresting parents, is that a strategy that's going to work, and is it a waste of time? Is it going to hold up in court?
It's definitely not a waste of time, and we're already doing it. We have a truancy court that Judge Teague and Judge DeSoto, who are here, have helped us with, and that's different than when I started 25 years ago. We didn't hold parents accountable for their kids not going to school. Now we have an entire court called Truancy Court that holds the parents accountable for their children not going to school, and we need to do more of that.
All right, let's go back to our audience microphone here, sir. Your name?
My name is Phil Bullock, and my question is directed to District Attorney Robb. We see every week in the paper the repeat offenders on driving under the influence. And what's really disturbing is seeing that some of these people, and too numerous, that they have been delayed so many times, and some of them are ridiculous. Do we have a program in place, or is there anything we can do to get the backlog of these repeat offenders and have something done about it, or are we spinning our wheels? Because these are the most dangerous people on the road as far as I'm concerned.
They certainly are the most dangerous people on the road, and I'm happy to tell you that we are doing something about it. We have started an administrative traffic court, again with the help of our district court judges. We have started putting infractions in a separate court. We've got, I think tomorrow we'll have probably about 800 cases on our administrative traffic court. So we're taking the smaller cases out of the regular district court so that we can focus on the DWIs. I'm happy to report that we are making headway in the backlog. It's slow because I inherited a problem, but we are making some headway, and I'm very happy to say that's with cooperation from our district court judges. So I think we are making some progress there, and I appreciate your concern.
I actually see two judges in the audience. Brian DeSoto is here, and Lee Teague. I'd like for you guys, if you would, to come to the microphone. I mentioned earlier, Judge Teague, that it's in vogue to say that part of the problem with our criminal process is the fact that the judicial system's too easy on them, that they get back out on the street. Address that for me if you would. And earlier the district attorney talked about the problems with structured sentencing. Is that a problem for you folks?
Well, as she said, that we have a sheet of paper that has a block on it, a grid, and we have to find the offense the person's convicted of and then go across the top and find the number of prior convictions and do the little dance and come to a particular box. And we're stuck with that box. And sometimes that box is the perfect result. Sometimes that's the perfect thing for that person. And sometimes it's just not enough. And there are times, and we're also limited, someone in district court like we are, Judge Soto and I, if you have convicted of 10 things at one time, the most sentence you can get is only for 2 of those. You can't get sentenced for 10 times, you can only get sentenced for 2. As to the DWIs, Judge Soto started this when he got on the bench, and I followed suit. We're not continuing old cases. We've decided that. He's been on there over a year now, me 6 months. We're not continuing old cases, the DWI cases. We're making those cases get tried. And yes, there is a backlog because we haven't been on the bench that long. And I'm certainly not saying the other judges haven't done a good job. I'm just saying that we're kind of stepping in there and stepping up a notch as well. So.
Judge DeSoto, do you have a follow-up or any comments about that? The judges are getting a lot of criticism for what's happening with putting criminals back on the street. I know you guys are both fairly new judges.
Right.
And so talk about your strategy and your thoughts about that.
Well, it certainly is a difficult job. Am I close enough? Am I picking up?
Yeah.
Okay. Closer? Okay. I'm going to have to lean over, but it certainly is a difficult job. And, you know, we have to look at each case independently, and there's a whole lot of factors that go into being able to try a case in a given afternoon. We have a short period of time. Obviously, we have lawyers who have rules of court in terms of where they have to be. And, you know, our lawyers don't just go to one court to make a living. They handle cases in different counties. So every day it's juggling to try to get all the people in place, the law enforcement that you need to try a case, the lawyer that you need to try a case. And it's not just, you know, I want it to happen and make it happen, but we have, I think, have put a lot of extra focus on making sure that we get the cases tried. And then when we get them tried, obviously trying to make sure that we find the right sentence. I understand the comments about structured sentencing. I think that there are ways, even with structured sentencing, that we can deal with repeat offenders. I think there's, you know, even if I have to put someone on probation, I can make it not very pleasant for them if I feel like that's, you know, the appropriate outcome. I do have one question, though, if I can. I think Judge T kind of handled it. Yeah. I was reading something yesterday that I think right now North Carolina and New York are the only 2 states that treat juveniles that the cutoff age is at 16. I think every other state, 16 and 17-year-olds besides North Carolina and New York, treat 16 and 17-year-olds as juveniles, where we treat them as adults. And I think this is one where my position has kind of changed over time. I know when I was working as a trial partner to Kimberly, I thought, you know, 16 years old, that's an adult, that's how we should treat the situation. And I guess as my kids get older and I start thinking about it, you know, a 16-year-old, you know, obviously the mental capacity, the decision making is not what it is when someone gets older. And I don't know that I necessarily have a position, but I'm just curious as to what y'all's thought process is, since we're one of only 2 states, and it looks like New York is probably going to change it, so we'll be alone in holding, you know, as treating 16-year-olds as adults and 17-year-olds as adults. Kind of what your thought process is on that.
Let's do this. We've got like 5 minutes left in this hour, and I don't want to run out of time. I want to give everybody a chance to speak. I want to thank Judge Brian DeSoto and Judge Lee Teague for weighing in. I pulled them out of the audience. You guys didn't know I was going to do that. And if anybody else has a burning question and wants to get up there real fast, we'll do it. We'll start with Kimberly on Judge DeSoto's question, and also any other closing thoughts that you might have, Kimberly Robb, the District Attorney of Pitt County.
Well, I can see a trend, and the trend is going to be that the juvenile age in North Carolina more than likely is going to be raised to 18, so that they'll be 18 before they're treated as adults. And I get that. I get that for minor crimes. What concerns me is the 16, 17-year-old who goes out and commits a heinous crime. And I have to explain to those parents, perhaps a child has been murdered, and I have to say, no, I'm sorry, the most I can do is keep him in juvenile detention until he's 21. And I don't want to be the person who has to say that. And unfortunately, more and more 16 and 17-year-olds are committing violent crimes. So perhaps there's a way we can tier it. You know, for violent crimes, you're not treated as a juvenile at 16 or 17. I think Brian Brown may help us with that down the road.
We do have at least one legislator here and some more coming later today. Sergeant Friday, give us your closing comments and your thoughts about where we are in the community.
Okay, well, to kind of piggyback on the juvenile issue too, I have to consider myself blessed that I went through college and survived, and I never got arrested or got in trouble for doing stuff. And so, but I worked a lot over the past 15 years with East Carolina students and Pitt Community College students who as victims and as suspects, and I thought, that, but for the grace of God, that could be me or somebody else I know. And so I've worked hard to try to solve an issue, divert them from court. And I think the same thing with high school students. If you get them through these adolescent years, survive them. Hopefully they'll learn a few things. As long as they haven't done anything super heinous, if they can survive it and learn from it and become better citizens, become grown-ups, I feel like we've done our job there.
All right, Candy Smith, City Council Candy Smith.
Well, I do agree that 16 is rather young, and a lot of times that maturity level, it's not where it needs to be. They're easily influenced, and a lot of times those younger ones are the ones that are the setup person because they know they're so young, then you do this because you won't get the time that I would get. So it does take a lot with the education. I think that we need to continue, and I go back to before it has to go into the hands of the police officers or the hands of the judges, we need to have something in place earlier, looking at what can happen at home, what can happen in the community, what can we support that's going to be beneficial, because the scary thing is that young child who does not have the mindset that they should have and around the wrong people, they could commit that crime against you. And I hear a lot of people saying it's just a family. To me, it takes a village. So when I see some of these individuals doing things that are not positive, I try to direct them in the right direction. I try to get people together to connect them. But 16 years old, to be treated as an adult, if you're going in and you're killing an entire family, that's very difficult to say, okay, you didn't make that decision and you didn't think about it. There has to be some thought process into that. But I think we have to also start looking at the therapists that we have out here in the community, psychiatrists, and recommending these people, especially at that young age, because they can talk to somebody. There's some things that can happen because there's a lot going on, but 16 is very young.
And Sheriff Neil Elks.
Well, we said a lot about juveniles. I'll touch quickly on that, but I'd like to say where we're at in our community. I encourage our lawmakers to be very aware of our laws that they dictate where our juveniles will be doing. I encourage them to come down to the lower level where the fighters on the street, so to speak, have to deal with that. But I'm very encouraged where we are in our community. I feel like that since I've been sheriff, and I know the new chief here, so much more community involvement. I'm very encouraged by that. Our goal was to go out throughout the county, and the city does the same thing, and contacting neighborhoods and starting community watch programs. And it's unbelievable that the people that come to community watch meetings, we have 50 and 60 people come in, and they want to take back control in their neighborhoods, and they are involved. And we let them know as law enforcement that it's okay to call the police. We need your extra eyes and ears for us to report crime. I'm very encouraged that the willingness from the community that they want to be involved. And I really see that that's deterring crime in the communities. It's basically having 500 or 600 extra eyes and ears and deputies and police officers out there reporting crimes. So I'm very encouraged, and I keep encouraging people to get involved. If you see things in your neighborhood that are suspicious, give us a call. That's how we can get our handle on what we got.
I want to thank this panel. If we could give them a round of applause for being part of this as well. Again, special thanks to Sheriff Neil Elks, Candy Smith from the Greenville City Council, Joe Friday, Sergeant Friday from the Greenville Police Department, and Kimberly Robb from the district attorney, our district attorney here. Again, you can't solve the crime issues in an hour, but this is meant to be a start of a dialogue between city leaders and community leaders and the community. So